Welcome to the introduction to the history and literature of ancient Israel. Hi, my name is Willem Smelik and I'm Professor of Hebrew and Aramaic Literature at the Department of Hebrew and Jewish Studies. I specialize in Hebrew Bible to early rabbinic literature with a particular focus on the Aramaic language. In this short introduction to an introduction, we will cover the following questions. What is the Hebrew Bible? Why is the Hebrew Bible important? What do we know about the history of ancient Israel, or the history of the Hebrew Bible for that matter? What will we cover in this course? Whom is this course for? It is a level 4 course which is open to all BA students of the first and second year across UCL. It does not require any previous knowledge of Hebrew. So everyone who is interested in it and is a first or second year student may attend, pending tutor approval. What is the Hebrew Bible? The Hebrew Bible, also known as the Old Testament, is a collection of books written in the Hebrew script by Israelite scribes for an Israelite audience. The word Bible is a transliteration from the Greek word biblia, more precisely ta biblia, the plural of to biblion, a strip of papyrus, hence document, later also book. The name is derived from a plural, hence it does not reflect a single entity, but rather a collection of documents. Over time, this collection came to be seen as one, although exactly when this occurred has been subject to a prolonged debate which still continues down to this day. The number of books, or indeed even their exact contents, depends on tradition. First of all, some of the books were apparently later divided into two parts, such as the books of Samuel, Kings, and Chronicles. Others were not universally accepted, such as the Hebrew Book of Ben Sira. The order of the books also varied between traditions. The order of the latter prophets in Hebrew manuscripts varied as late as the High Medieval period, starting with Ezekiel rather than Isaiah, for example. The Book of Chronicles does not appear at the last position in all editions, and the order within the 5 scrolls, the Megillot, also varies. The name Hebrew Bible is an English alternative to the Christian designation the Old Testament, so-called Old in contrast to the New Testament, which is basically meaning covenant in this context, and refers to the Christian notion that the church replaced Israel and the new covenant with the church as a spiritual Israel rendered the old covenant with the Jews obsolete. These names then refer to a perspective that is not intrinsic to the scriptures themselves. A more neutral Jewish name came into use much later, based on the 3 parts of the Hebrew Bible: the Torah of Moses, T, the prophets, Nevi'im, N, and the writings, Ketuvim, K, pronounced as Tanakh. Why is the Hebrew Bible important? The Hebrew Bible speaks to many people. It is the creation story of the people of Israel and by extension of the world. It spoke to the early Christians and it was adopted as their Old Testament in Greek and Syriac translations. Its stories also influenced the composition of the Quran centuries later. As one of the cornerstones of the 3 Abrahamic faiths, each of which recognizes other distinct documents as authoritative as well, it clearly has been influential in several ways: art, culture, religion, politics, you name it. Art historians with no knowledge of the stories in the scriptures are required to take a course in their contents to understand their own subjects, for example. What do we know about the history of the Hebrew Bible, and what do we know about the history of ancient Israel? We have to distinguish between the history of ancient Israel, partly narrated in the Hebrew Bible, and the history of the scriptures. Neither is an easy subject. It is clear that the Hebrew scriptures were composed over a number of centuries in different regions, but all that we have, or at least most that we have, is the final version of its text. That said, we do possess a number of sources that show a discrepancy between textual witnesses of the Hebrew Bible, including the Dead Sea Scrolls and the ancient Jewish translations into Greek, known as the Septuagint. Some of these vary by entire pericopes, blurring the distinction between small variation and textual growth. The history of ancient Israel is told in the scriptures, and once again far more elusive outside of the text, which is a religious account. For example, the reign of Manasseh, king of Judah, between 698 and 642 before the Common Era, that is for no less than 55 years, is evaluated rather harshly in the Book of Kings, although historically he may have enjoyed relative success. He succeeded Hezekiah, whose purest reforms were not universally acclaimed, although they are portrayed as the right thing to do in the Hebrew Bible. Manasseh, by contrast, was not a king who followed the religious norms of the priests and prophets of his time. Indeed, he appeased his Assyrian overlords. He receives the worst press imaginable as an idolater and an evil man. Archaeology and extra-biblical sources have shed new light on the certain developments, which has given rise to a partial new consensus on the origins of ancient Israel, even though there is still much disagreement on other issues. It is generally agreed now that Israel emerged within the land of Canaan. These and other issues we will discuss in detail during this course. What will we cover in this course? We will talk about all of the above, including the history of ancient Israel from its emergence down to the period of the Dead Sea Scrolls. We will survey the contents of the literature, such as temple service, prophecy, political success and failure, and we will place the modern approach to the scriptures in a historical context. Welcome to this survey course to the history and literature of ancient Israel, and I hope I will see you during the academic year again.